There are children in my house. Sean's voice was ice. Victoria froze. Behind her, Jacob and Bella sat on the floor, toys in their hands. You brought children into my house. Mr. Miller, please, I had no one. I don't allow children here. That was rule number 1. His hand pointed at the door. Everything she'd worked for gone. But then Bella looked up at the tall man with the angry face and said, Daddy sad? Sean stopped breathing. And what happened next would change 4 broken lives forever. Victoria Brown knew what it felt like to be empty. Not the kind of empty you feel after a bad day. The kind that sits in your chest when you wake up at 3 in the morning and realize you're doing this alone. Completely alone. She had 2 babies, Jacob and Bella, almost 2 years old. Her whole world. Their father left while she was still pregnant, packed his things one night and said he wasn't ready. She never heard from him again. 3 months after the twins were born, her mother died. Cancer, fast and brutal. And just like that, Victoria had no one. She worked 2 jobs, cleaned offices at night while a neighbor watched the babies, waitressed during the day, smile on her face, feet screaming, pretending she wasn't falling apart. But the bills kept coming. Bella's glasses, $400 her insurance wouldn't cover. Jacob's ear infections, specialist visits, medications, co-pays that ate through what little she had left. Some nights, after the twins were asleep, Victoria would sit on the bathroom floor and cry so hard she couldn't breathe. God, I can't keep doing this. I'm trying so hard. Then she saw the job posting. Private housekeeper, $95,000 a year. She stared at the screen. People like her didn't get jobs like that. But Bella needed glasses, Jacob needed medicine, and maybe, just maybe, God was finally answering. So she applied. The interview was at a house that didn't look real. Gates, tennis courts, rooms she couldn't even count. The man who owned it was just as cold as the house felt. Sean Miller, billionaire, built an empire, sold it, then disappeared. He looked at her like she wasn't even there. I need silence. I need privacy. And I do not allow children in this house, ever. Break that rule, and you're gone immediately. Victoria nodded, took the job, went home, and thanked God on her knees. For 3 weeks, she was perfect, invisible, silent, everything he asked for. She'd see him sometimes pacing the halls at night, working until dawn, living like a man who'd forgotten what living was. And she'd wonder what could make someone lock themselves away like that. Then everything fell apart. The call came early, 6:15 inches the morning. Her daycare was shut down, health violations, closed immediately. Her backup sitter was out of state. There was no one else. Victoria stood in her apartment, Jacob crying with another fever, Bella tugging at her shirt, and felt the walls closing in. God, please, I can't lose this job. I can't. She looked at her babies. At the medicine bottles on the counter she couldn't afford to refill. At the eviction notice she'd hidden under a stack of mail. And she made a choice. She packed their diaper bag, drove to the mansion before the sun came up, snuck them into a room she knew he never used. Please, babies, please be quiet today. Just today. They were so good, so quiet. And for hours, she thought maybe, just maybe, it would be okay. Until Sean came home early. Until he opened that door. Until he saw what she'd done. Before we continue, subscribe, like this video, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. This is a story about what happens when broken people stop running from the pain. It's for anyone who's ever wondered if they're too far gone to be saved. Let's begin. Sean stood in the doorway. For a long moment, he just stared. 2 babies, on the floor, playing with plastic cars. In his house. His mind went blank. Then it caught fire. Victoria. His voice echoed through the entire house. Loud, sharp. The kind of sound that makes your blood run cold. Victoria was upstairs. She heard it, and her stomach dropped. She ran. Down the stairs, feet barely touching the steps, heart slamming against her ribs. When she reached the doorway and saw Sean standing there, saw her babies on the floor behind him, she knew. This was it. This was over. There are children in my house. His voice was quiet now, deadly quiet, worse than the yelling. Mr. Miller, You brought children into my house. I know. I'm so sorry. My daycare closed. I had no one. I don't allow children here. His jaw was tight. The vein in his temple pulsed. That was the only rule that mattered. Victoria's hands were shaking. Please, please, just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. He pointed at the door. Get them out. Get out. You're fired. The words hit her like a punch to the chest. Jacob heard the anger in his voice and started crying. Loud, scared crying that filled the room. Bella's lip trembled. Her little face crumpled. And Victoria felt her world collapse. Mr. Miller, please. I said get out. His voice was cold, final, but his hands were shaking too. Victoria knelt down, reaching for Jacob, trying to pick him up while he cried and kicked. But Bella didn't move. She just sat there on the floor, looking up at Sean. She didn't understand, fired. Didn't understand why the tall man was so angry. She only understood what she saw. Sad eyes. She'd seen eyes like that before, on her mama's face late at night when mama thought they were sleeping. So, Bella did what she always did when mama looked sad. She crawled toward him. Sean didn't notice at first. He was too busy trying to keep his voice steady, trying to hold on to the anger, because if he let it go, something else might break through. But then he felt it. Small hands grabbing his pant leg. He looked down. Bella had pulled herself up on wobbly legs. She was standing now, holding onto him for balance, looking up with those big brown eyes. And she reached her tiny arms up toward him. Daddy sad? The room went silent. Even Jacob stopped crying. Sean staggered backward like she'd hit him. Daddy. Not mister. Not sir. Daddy. The word crashed into him, ripped through every wall he'd spent 7 years building. Suddenly, he wasn't in this room anymore. He was in a hospital waiting room, Emma's hand in his, her belly round and full. 8 months pregnant. He's going to call you Daddy, Sean. Can you imagine? He was in a car, headlights coming at them, Emma screaming, the drunk driver running the red light. The impact. The silence after. The doctor saying, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. I'm not, his voice broke. He couldn't finish the sentence. Bella kept looking up at him, kept reaching. Jacob, seeing his sister, crawled over too, grabbed Sean's other leg, looked up with those same innocent eyes. Up? Jacob asked softly. Sean couldn't breathe. 2 babies, looking at him like he mattered, like he was someone worth reaching for. And all he could feel was 7 years of grief slamming into him like a freight train. You need to leave. But there was no anger left in his voice, just exhaustion, just pain. Victoria scooped up both babies, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She grabbed their bag, grabbed their toys, didn't even look back. 10 minutes later, she was gone. And Sean stood alone in that empty room, staring at the spot where they'd been. A plastic car sat on the floor, blue, cheap, 1 wheel missing. He picked it up, turned it over in his hands. Daddy sad? How did she know? How did a 2-year-old see what no one else had seen in 7 years? Sean's legs gave out. He slid down the wall, sat on the floor with that broken toy car in his hands. And for the first time since Emma died, since Lily died, he let himself shatter completely. He cried, deep, choking sobs that tore through his chest. The kind of crying that comes from a place so deep you didn't even know it existed. He cried for Emma, for Lily, for the life they were supposed to have. And he cried because a little girl he didn't even know had just asked him the one question he'd been too afraid to answer. Yes, Daddy's sad. Daddy's been sad for 7 years. And Daddy doesn't know how to stop. Victoria didn't go home right away. She sat in her car in a grocery store parking lot 3 blocks away, engine off, windows up, and cried until she couldn't anymore. Jacob and Bella were quiet in the back seat. They'd never seen their mama like this. Mama, okay? Bella whispered. Victoria wiped her face, forced a smile in the rearview mirror. Yeah, baby, Mama's okay. But she wasn't. That job was everything. The medical bills, the rent, the chance to finally breathe. Gone. She pulled out her phone, typed the email through blurred vision. Dear Mr. Miller, I am resigning effective immediately. I take full responsibility for my actions and deeply regret breaking your trust. I'm sorry. Victoria Brown. She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she drove home to figure out how to survive. Sean didn't leave that room for hours. He just sat there on the floor, back against the wall, that toy car still in his hand. The house was silent again. Exactly how he wanted it. Exactly how he'd built it to be. But now the silence felt different, heavy, suffocating. He kept hearing it. That small voice. Daddy sad? He squeezed his eyes shut, tried to push it away, but it wouldn't leave. His phone buzzed. An email. He didn't need to open it to know what it was. Victoria's resignation. He stared at the notification, finger hovering over it. Then he locked his phone and set it down. The next morning, Sean tried to work. Pulled up spreadsheets, opened emails, joined a conference call about a merger he didn't care about. Someone was talking about profit margins, quarterly projections, market share. And all Sean could think was, what for? What was he building this for? Who was he doing this for? He had more money than he'd ever spend, properties he never visited, investments that kept growing while he sat alone in a house that felt like a grave. He ended the call early, said he wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie. That afternoon, he found himself back in that room, the one where he'd found them, where Bella had looked up at him and spoken the truth no one else had dared to say. The toys were gone. Victoria had grabbed everything when she left. Except the blue car, the one with the missing wheel. It was still sitting on the side table where he'd left it. Sean picked it up, ran his thumb over the chipped paint. This thing probably cost $2, maybe less. The kind of toy you find at a thrift store or a church donation box. But some kid Jacob or Bella had loved it, played with it, held it close. He thought about the mansion around him, the art on the walls worth tens of thousands, the furniture custom-made in Italy, the cars in the garage. All of it meaningless. All of it cold. A toy car with a missing wheel had more life in it than anything in this entire house. Sean walked through the rooms that night. 20 of them. Most he hadn't entered in months. Guest bedrooms with beds that had never been slept in. A dining room with a table that sat 12 but had only ever sat one. A playroom. He stopped. There was a playroom. He'd forgotten it existed. Hadn't opened the door since he bought the place. He turned the handle, stepped inside. Everything was still wrapped in plastic. A rocking horse, shelves for books, a toy chest. He'd bought this house 7 years ago thinking maybe one day he'd use these rooms. Maybe one day he'd be ready. But he never was. He just locked the doors and pretended they didn't exist. Just like he'd locked away everything else. Sean sat down on the floor right there in the middle of that untouched room and put his head in his hands. What am I doing? Emma's voice came back to him, not from a memory, just from somewhere deep inside where he'd buried her. Live, Sean. Promise me you'll live. She'd said that in the hospital, right before she went into surgery, before they lost the baby, before the complications, before everything fell apart. Promise me. He'd promised. And then he'd built a tomb and locked himself inside it. 3 days passed. Sean didn't leave the house, didn't answer calls, didn't work. He just walked the empty halls and felt the silence press down on him like water. On the third night, he stood at his bedroom window and looked out at the dark grounds. And he realized something. He wasn't living. He hadn't been living for 7 years. He'd been hiding, running, waiting for the pain to stop. But it never stopped. It just got quieter, easier to ignore, until 2 babies showed up and reminded him what noise sounded like, what life sounded like. Sean pulled out his phone, opened Victoria's email, read it again. Then he made a decision. He called his lawyer. I need an address. Sean's lawyer didn't ask questions, just sent the address an hour later. South Norwalk, apartment 307. Sean looked at it on his phone, knew exactly what kind of neighborhood it was. He'd driven past places like that 1,000 times and never thought twice about them. Now he was going there. He changed out of his suit, jeans, plain shirt, sneakers he'd bought years ago and never worn. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Then he got in his car and drove. The apartment building was old, 4 stories, paint peeling on the shutters, laundry hanging from balconies, chain-link fence around a small courtyard where kids were playing. Sean's Mercedes looked obscene, parked next to 10-year-old Hondas and rusted-out trucks. He turned off the engine, sat there. What am I doing? A group of kids surrounded his car, faces pressed against the windows, pointing, laughing. Yo, mister, you lost? Sean got out. No, I'm visiting someone. In this building? One kid looked skeptical. You sure? I'm sure. He walked toward the entrance, could feel eyes on him from every window, people watching, wondering. The lobby smelled like old carpet and something fried. The elevator had an out-of-order sign taped to it. Sean took the stairs. 3rd floor. Down a narrow hallway with fluorescent lights that buzzed. Apartment 307. He stood there, hand raised. Couldn't make himself knock. What am I going to say? What if she slams the door? What if she's terrified I'm here too? He knocked before he could talk himself out of it. Footsteps, slow, cautious. The door cracked open, chain still on. Victoria looked out, saw him, went completely white. Mr. Miller, I need to talk to you. His voice came out rougher than he meant. Please. She just stared, like she was trying to figure out if this was real. How did you find? Please, just 5 minutes. Victoria's hand shook as she unhooked the chain. She opened the door. The apartment was tiny. 1 room, maybe 600 square feet, a kitchen along one wall, a couch that pulled out into a bed, a playpen in the corner. But it was clean, spotless, and there were touches everywhere, drawings taped to the fridge, a blanket folded neatly on the couch, toys organized in a basket. This place had more life in it than his entire mansion. Jacob and Bella were in the playpen, chewing on blocks, safe, contained. Bella saw him first. Her whole face lit up. Daddy. She dropped her block, started pulling herself up on the side of the playpen, reaching for him. Sean's knees almost gave out. Victoria moved quickly. They call every man that. I'm sorry. She doesn't understand. Don't, Sean's voice cracked. Don't apologize. He couldn't take his eyes off them. Jacob had crawled to the edge too now, both of them looking at him like he was someone they'd been waiting for. Victoria stood between them and Sean, protective. Why are you here? I need to tell you something. Sean looked at her, really looked at her, saw the exhaustion in her face, the fear, the strength it took just to keep standing, about why I reacted the way I did. You don't owe me an explanation. You had rules. I broke them. Just listen, please. Victoria crossed her arms. Didn't sit. Didn't relax. Sean sat down on the edge of her couch, felt completely out of place. Too big for this small space. Too broken to be here. But he was here anyway. 7 years ago, his voice caught. He cleared his throat, tried again. 7 years ago, my wife was pregnant. 8 months. We were coming home from a birthing class. Victoria's expression shifted. Something in her eyes softened. We were talking about names, laughing about something stupid, and then he stopped, swallowed hard. A drunk driver ran a red light, hit us on Emma's side. Victoria's hand moved to her mouth. She died instantly. The baby, our daughter, she didn't make it either. His hands were shaking. I was driving. I was in the driver's seat, and I walked away without a scratch. Mr. Miller. Sean. He looked up at her, eyes red. Please, just Sean. Victoria sat down slowly, on the other end of the couch, giving him space but listening. I bought that house after the funeral, told myself I needed space. Peace. Quiet. He laughed bitterly. But really, I just needed to hide. From everything. Everyone. Because if I stayed quiet enough, I wouldn't have to feel it. He looked at the twins. They'd gone back to playing with their blocks. Innocent. Unaware. And then your daughter looked at me and asked if I was sad. His voice broke completely now. And she was right. I am sad. I've been sad for 7 years. But I convinced myself I was fine, that the silence meant I was healing. Tears rolled down his face. He didn't wipe them away. I didn't come here to hire you back, Victoria. I came to say I'm sorry. You were doing what any mother would do, and I punished you for it. I punished you for reminding me that I'm still alive." Victoria was crying too now, quiet tears that slid down her cheeks. Neither of them said anything for a long moment. Then Sean stood, headed for the door. But he stopped, hand on the doorknob. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria nodded. "How do you do it?" He turned back. "How do you keep going when everything's so hard?" Victoria looked at Jacob and Bella, smiled through her tears. "Because they need me to. That's the only reason that matters." Sean nodded slowly. And then, so quietly she almost didn't hear it, "I need that too." Victoria stared at him. "Need what?" Sean turned back, looked at her, at the twins, at this tiny apartment that somehow held more warmth than anything he'd known in years. "Someone to need me." His voice was barely above a whisper. "A reason to keep going." Victoria stood up slowly. "I don't understand." Sean knelt down, eye level with the playpen. Jacob immediately reached through the bars toward him, grabbed his finger, and something in Sean's chest cracked open. "I have 13 empty bedrooms," he said softly, not looking at Victoria. "Just at the babies. A kitchen no one cooks in, more money than I'll ever spend, and none of it means anything." He finally looked up at her. "What if you came back? Not as my housekeeper, not as an employee." He paused, swallowed. "As family, or roommates. I don't even know what to call it." Victoria took a step back. "You want us to live with you? I know it sounds crazy. I know I have no right to ask after what I did. You fired me 3 days ago." Her voice shook. "You looked at my children like they ruined something, and now you want us to just move in?" "I know," Sean stood. "I know how it sounds." "Do you?" Victoria's arms were crossed now, defensive, scared. "Because from where I'm standing, this feels like guilt, or pity, and I don't need either of those." "It's not that." "Then what is it?" Sean looked at her, really looked at her. This woman, who worked herself to nothing for 2 kids, who hid them in a stranger's house because she had no other choice, who apologized for surviving. "It's selfish," he admitted. "I'm asking because I don't want to be alone anymore. Because those 2 days after you left were the longest days I've had in 7 years. Because your daughter asked me one question and broke through something I didn't know was still breakable." Victoria's expression softened slightly, but she didn't move. "I'm not asking you to fix me," Sean continued. "I'm asking if maybe we could help each other. You need stability, a safe place, help with the kids. I need," his voice caught, "I need to remember what it feels like to be needed." Bella started fussing. Victoria went to the playpen automatically, picked her up, settled her on her hip. Bella laid her head on her mama's shoulder but kept her eyes on Sean. "Daddy stay?" she asked. Victoria closed her eyes. "Baby, he's not—" "I don't know how to do this," Sean interrupted. "I don't know how to be around kids. I've never changed a diaper. I barely know how to have a conversation anymore." "Then why?" "Because I'm tired." The words came out broken, raw. "I'm tired of that house. I'm tired of the silence. I'm tired of waking up every day and wondering what I'm even doing this for." He looked at the twins, at Victoria, and for the first time in 7 years, standing here in this tiny apartment, "I actually want to find out." Victoria was quiet for a long time. Jacob had fallen asleep in the playpen. Bella was getting drowsy on her mama's shoulder. The refrigerator hummed in the corner. "This can't be charity," Victoria finally said. Her voice was firm but gentle. "It can't be me working for you or owing you. If we do this, it has to be real." "I don't know how to do real anymore." Sean's honesty hung in the air between them. "But I want to learn." Victoria looked down at Bella, at Jacob sleeping peacefully, at the eviction notice she'd shoved under a stack of bills that morning, at the impossible choice that didn't feel impossible anymore. "One condition," she said quietly. "Anything. You go back to therapy. You talk to someone. Because I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't be responsible for healing you. I'm barely holding myself together." Sean nodded. "Okay. I mean it." "I know. I will." He paused. "So, is that a yes?" Victoria looked at him, saw the brokenness, saw the hope underneath it, saw a man reaching for something he'd given up on. And she saw her babies, saw the chance to give them something better. "Yes," she whispered. "We'll try." Victoria moved in on a Tuesday. Everything she owned fit in the back of her car. 2 suitcases, a bag of toys, car seats. That was it. Sean helped carry it all in, gave her the entire west wing, 3 bedrooms, a bathroom with a tub big enough for both twins, windows that looked out over the garden. "You can change anything you want," he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "Paint, furniture, whatever makes it feel like home." Victoria set Bella down, watched her toddle across the room, eyes wide. "This is more space than we've ever had. It's yours now." Jacob was already pulling open drawers, exploring, making noise that echoed off the walls. And Sean didn't flinch. He just smiled, small, uncertain, but real. The first week was strange. Sean didn't know what to do with himself, didn't know where to stand or how to help or what was okay to say. Victoria would cook breakfast and he'd hover near the kitchen, wanting to help but not knowing how. "You can sit," she finally said on the 3rd morning. "You don't have to watch me." "I'm not watching. I'm just—" He stopped. "I don't know what I'm doing." "Neither do I." Victoria cracked an egg into the pan. "But we'll figure it out." Bella banged her spoon on the high chair. "Hungry?" Sean laughed. Actually laughed. And Victoria turned around, surprised. "What?" "Nothing. Just, she's loud. Is that okay?" "Yeah." Sean sat down at the table. "Yeah, it's okay." Sean's first diaper change was a disaster. Jacob had a blowout. Victoria was in the shower, and Sean stood there staring at the situation like it was a bomb he didn't know how to defuse. Okay, I can do this." He couldn't. Wipes everywhere, diaper on backward, Jacob screaming and kicking. Victoria came running, hair still wet, and found Sean sitting on the floor covered in baby powder, Jacob naked and laughing on the changing table. She tried not to laugh. Failed. "It's not funny." "It's a little funny. He's like an octopus." "How do you—" Victoria showed him, step by step, patient, kind. And Sean watched like she was teaching him the most important thing in the world. Because maybe she was. At night, Bella had nightmares. The first time, Sean heard her crying through the walls, heard Victoria's footsteps, heard soft singing. The second time, he got up, stood outside the door, listening. The third time, he knocked. "Can I help?" Victoria looked exhausted. Bella was clinging to her, sobbing. "She just needs to be held." "Let me try." Victoria hesitated, then passed Bella to him. Bella buried her face in Sean's shoulder, her little body shaking with leftover tears. Sean stood there, holding her, feeling the weight of this tiny person who trusted him for no reason except that he was there. "You're okay," he whispered. "I've got you." And slowly, Bella's breathing evened out. Her grip loosened. She fell asleep in his arms. Victoria watched from the doorway, eyes wet. "You're good at that." "I don't feel good at it." "You are." Sean carried Bella back to her crib, laid her down gently, covered her with the blanket. And when he turned around, Victoria was still standing there. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For trying." 2 weeks in, Sean had his first therapy session. Dr. Martinez was older, calm, didn't push. "Tell me why you're here." Sean told him everything. Emma, Lily, the accident, the 7 years of silence. And then he told him about Victoria, about the twins, about the question that broke him. "A 2-year-old asked if I was sad," Sean said, staring at his hands. "And I realized I've been sad for so long I forgot what anything else felt like. What does it feel like now?" Sean thought about the noise in his house, the toys on the floor, Bella calling him Daddy even though he wasn't, Jacob's laugh when they played cars. "Scary," he admitted, "but also lighter." "Why scary?" "Because what if I lose them too?" His voice broke. "What if I let myself care and something happens?" Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "You already care, Sean. Now you just have to be brave enough to admit it." 3 weeks in, something shifted. Sean came home from a meeting and heard music. Kids' songs, playing from the kitchen. He followed the sound. Victoria was cooking, pasta sauce simmering on the stove, Bella in the high chair making a mess with Cheerios, Jacob on the floor with his cars. And it hit Sean all at once. This was life. This was what he'd been missing. Victoria saw him standing there. "You okay?" Sean nodded, couldn't speak for a second. "Yeah, He looked around, at the mess, at the noise, at the light coming through the windows. "This is the first time this house has felt like a home." Victoria smiled. "Good, because we're not going anywhere." And for the first time in 7 years, Sean believed that maybe, just maybe, he deserved to be happy again. 1 month in, Sean found himself smiling without realizing it. Watching Jacob stack blocks, listening to Bella sing nonsense songs, sitting at the table while Victoria told stories about her day. He was healing, and that terrified him. It happened on a Thursday night. The twins were asleep. Victoria was reading on the couch. Sean was in his study, trying to focus on work. But he couldn't. He kept hearing laughter from earlier. Bella had knocked over her juice, and instead of crying, she'd laughed. And Sean had laughed with her. When was the last time he'd laughed like that? He opened his desk drawer, pulled out the photo he kept hidden there. Emma, 8 months pregnant, glowing, her hand on her belly, his arm around her shoulders. They looked so happy, so alive, so certain the future was theirs. Sean traced the edge of the photo with his thumb. "I'm sorry," he thought. "I'm so sorry." Because he was starting to feel happy again, and it felt like betrayal. Victoria found him there an hour later. The study door was open. Sean was sitting in the dark, that photo in his hands, tears on his face. She almost turned around, almost left him alone. But something stopped her. "Sean?" He looked up, quickly wiped his face. "I'm fine." "You're not." He set the photo down, face up, didn't hide it. Victoria stepped inside, saw the woman in the picture, saw the belly, understood. She was beautiful. Yeah, his voice was rough. She was. Victoria sat down in the chair across from him, didn't push, just waited. Sean picked up the photo again, stared at it like he was memorizing something he was afraid to forget. "I feel guilty," he finally said. "For what?" "For this, for being happy." He looked at Victoria, eyes red, broken, for moving on. Victoria's chest tightened. "Sean." She wanted this so badly, the kids, the noise, the life, and I couldn't give it to her. His hands shook. "But now, I have it, with someone else's kids, someone else's life. And it feels like I'm betraying her," Victoria finished softly. He nodded. Victoria was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Can I tell you something?" Sean looked at her. "When my husband left, I was 6 months pregnant, alone, terrified." She paused. "And I was angry at him for so long, for abandoning us, for choosing himself over his own children. That's different." "Let me finish." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I was angry, but then Jacob got sick, and I realized I couldn't carry that anger and take care of them at the same time. So I had to choose." Sean waited. "I chose them, and I let him go." Victoria leaned forward. "Not because I stopped hurting, but because holding on to that pain was keeping me from living. It's not the same. She didn't leave me. She died." "I know, but the question is the same." Victoria held his gaze. "Do you think she'd want you to spend the rest of your life locked away, or do you think she'd want you to live?" Sean's face crumpled. "I don't know how to do both. Love her and move forward." "You don't have to stop loving her to start living again." Victoria's voice cracked. "You just have to let her memory be part of your life, instead of all of it." Sean put his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Victoria stood, walked over, put her hand on his shoulder. And Sean broke. Not the controlled crying from before, the kind that comes from somewhere so deep it's been buried for years. Victoria didn't leave, just stood there, let him feel it. When he finally stopped, the room was quiet, except for his breathing. "I'm scared," he whispered. "Of what?" "Of losing you, of losing them." He looked up at her. of letting myself care and having it all ripped away again. Victoria knelt down beside his chair, eye level with him. I'm scared too, Sean, every single day. Her eyes were wet now. I'm scared of getting sick and leaving my kids alone. I'm scared of not being enough. I'm scared of trusting someone and getting hurt again. Then how do you do it? I do it scared. She smiled through tears. Because the alternative is not living at all. And my babies deserve better than a mama who's too afraid to love them fully. Sean stared at her and realized something that made his heart stop. He wasn't just healing because of the twins. He was healing because of her. Because of the way she loved without holding back. The way she gave everything even when she had nothing left. The way she made him believe that maybe broken people could still build something whole. Victoria. A cry came from upstairs. Bella. Victoria stood. I'll go. Sean wiped his face. Stood. I've got her. Victoria watched him leave, saw him climb the stairs toward the sound of Bella's crying, and she put her hand over her heart. Because she'd realized something too. She was falling for him. For this broken man who was learning to live again. And that terrified her more than anything. Things changed after that night. Not in big ways. In small ones. The way Sean's hand would linger on Victoria's shoulder when he passed her in the kitchen. The way she'd catch him looking at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. The way conversations would stretch longer after the twins went to bed. Neither of them said anything about it. But they both felt it. Sean started therapy twice a week. Dr. Martinez noticed the difference immediately. You look lighter. I feel lighter, Sean paused, but also more confused. About what? Sean stared at his hands. About what I'm allowed to want. What do you mean? Emma's been gone 7 years, and for 7 years I told myself I was done, that I'd had my chance at love, and lost it. He looked up. But now there's someone in my house who makes me feel things I thought I'd never feel again. Dr. Martinez leaned back. Victoria. Sean nodded. And that scares you. Terrifies me. Sean's voice dropped. Because what if I'm just desperate? What if I'm confusing gratitude with something else? What if I ruin the only good thing I've had in years because I can't tell the difference? What does your heart tell you? Sean was quiet for a long time. That I'm falling in love with her. And I don't know if I have the right to. Victoria couldn't sleep. She'd lie awake listening to the house settle, hearing Sean's footsteps when he couldn't sleep either, wondering what he was thinking. She'd replay that moment in his study, the way he'd looked at her before Bella cried, like he was seeing her for the first time. Like she mattered, and it scared her. Because she'd been alone for so long, learned to need no one, built walls so high she forgot they were there. But Sean was breaking through them without even trying. One night, she found him in the garden. 2 in the morning. Couldn't sleep. She almost went back inside, but something made her step outside instead. You okay? Sean turned, smiled softly. Just thinking. About what? About how different everything is now. He looked up at the stars. A few months ago, I was alone in this house, wishing I was dead. And now... He stopped. Victoria moved closer. And now. Now I wake up and hear kids laughing, smell coffee brewing, feel like maybe I have a reason to be here. He looked at her. Because of you. Her breath caught. Sean, I'm not saying this to make things complicated. He ran his hand through his hair. I needed you to know that you saved my life. You and those kids, you saved me. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You saved us too, she whispered. We were drowning, and you gave us air. They stood there in the dark, close enough to touch, but not touching. Both of them wanting to close the distance. Both of them too afraid. I should go back inside, Victoria finally said. Yeah, me too. But neither of them moved. Sean looked at her, really looked at her, saw the exhaustion she carried, the strength, the beauty she didn't even know she had. Can I ask you something? Anything? Do you believe in second chances? Victoria's heart pounded. I don't know, maybe. Why? Because I think God's giving me one, and I don't want to waste it. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered on her cheek. Victoria closed her eyes, leaned into his touch, and for one moment, everything else disappeared. Then a light turned on upstairs, Jacob crying. They stepped apart. "I'll go," Victoria said quickly. "No, I've got him. You sleep." Sean went inside, left her standing there in the garden, heart racing, mind spinning, knowing that everything had just changed. The next morning, Bella asked a question that stopped them both cold. They were eating breakfast. Sean was making pancakes, his new skill. Victoria was feeding Jacob. "Mama," Bella said, syrup on her chin, "is Sean our daddy now?" Victoria froze, looked at Sean. Sean set down the spatula, knelt beside Bella's chair. "What do you think, Bella?" "I think yes," she smiled, her gap-toothed smile. "You live here. You make us breakfast. You give hugs when we're sad." "That's what daddies do." Sean's voice was soft. "Uh-huh." She touched his face with her sticky hands. "You're our daddy." Sean looked at Victoria, saw the tears in her eyes, looked back at Bella. "If that's what you want, then yeah, I'm your daddy." Bella threw her arms around his neck, and Sean held her tight, feeling something settle into place in his chest, something that felt like purpose, like home, like family. That afternoon, while the twins napped, Sean made a decision. He went to his study, opened the drawer where he kept Emma's photo, looked at it one last time. "I'll always love you," he whispered, "but I think I'm allowed to love them too. I hope," his voice broke, "I hope you'd understand." He placed the photo on his desk, face up, not hidden. Then he went to find Victoria. Found her in the living room folding laundry. "Can we talk?" She looked up, saw something in his face that made her heart skip. "Okay." Sean sat down beside her, took her hands. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen. Can you do that?" Victoria nodded, barely breathing. "I'm falling in love with you." The words came out clear, certain. "I don't know when it started. Maybe the first time I saw you fighting for your kids. Maybe when you showed me how to change a diaper. Maybe that night in the garden." He squeezed her hands. "But I know it's real. And I know I want this, you, the twins, this life if you'll have me." Victoria's tears spilled over. "I'm scared, Sean." "So am I. What if it doesn't work? What if we ruin what we have? What if we don't?" He moved closer. "What if this is exactly what we're supposed to do? What if God brought us together for this?" Victoria looked at him, saw the truth in his eyes, the love, the hope. "I'm falling for you too," she finally whispered, "and it terrifies me." Sean smiled through his own tears. "Then let's be terrified together." And he kissed her. Soft, gentle, full of promise. The kiss changed everything. Not overnight, but slowly, like light creeping into a room that had been dark for too long. Sean started holding Victoria's hand at the dinner table. She'd rest her head on his shoulder while they watched the twins play. He'd kiss her forehead when he left for meetings. She'd wait up for him when he came home late. Small things that meant everything. 4 months in, Sean took them all to the beach. His first family outing, ever. Bella and Jacob had never seen the ocean. They stood at the edge of the water, eyes wide, scared of the waves. "It's okay," Sean said, kneeling between them. "I've got you." He held their hands, walked them into the shallow water. They screamed, laughed, splashed, and Sean felt something he'd never felt before. Pure joy. Victoria watched from the sand, tears streaming down her face. This was the life she'd prayed for, the life she thought was impossible. And God had given it to her anyway. 6 months in, Sean had a breakthrough in therapy. "I think I'm ready," he told Dr. Martinez. "Ready for what?" "To let go of the guilt." Sean's voice was steady. "Clear. Emma's gone, and I'll always love her, but I'm not betraying her by being happy. I'm honoring her by living the life she wanted for me." Dr. Martinez smiled. "That's growth, Sean. I want to marry Victoria." The words came out certain, strong. "I want to adopt the twins, make this official, make us a real family." "What's stopping you?" Sean paused. "Fear that I'll mess it up, that I don't deserve it." "Do the twins think you deserve it?" Sean thought about Bella crawling into his lap every morning, about Jacob asking him to read bedtime stories, about the way they both called him Daddy without hesitation. Yeah, they do. Then maybe you should listen to them. That night, Sean couldn't sleep. He walked past the twins' room, stopped, pushed the door open quietly. Jacob and Bella were asleep, peaceful, safe. He thought about the first time he saw them, how angry he'd been, how afraid, and now he couldn't imagine life without them. He knelt beside Bella's bed, brushed hair from her face. "You saved me, you know that?" he whispered. "You looked at me and saw something I couldn't see, something worth saving." Bella stirred, opened her eyes halfway. "Love you, Daddy." Then she was asleep again. Sean's chest tightened. "Love you too, baby girl, more than you'll ever know." He went to Jacob's bed. The boy was sprawled out, blanket kicked off. Sean covered him, kissed his forehead, and made a promise right there in the dark. "I'm going to be the father you deserve. I'm going to show up, stay, love you through everything, I promise." The next morning, Sean had a meeting with his lawyer. "I want to start adoption proceedings for Jacob and Bella Brown." His lawyer raised an eyebrow. "That's a big step." "It's the right step." "And their mother?" "Victoria and I." Sean paused, smiled. "We're together. This is what we both want." "All right then, I'll draw up the paperwork." Sean left the office feeling lighter than he had in years. This was happening. This was real. 8 months in, the adoption was finalized. The courthouse was small, just them and the judge. Sean wore a suit. Victoria wore a simple dress. The twins wore matching outfits that Bella had picked out dinosaurs. The judge looked down at Jacob and Bella. "Do you two know what's happening today?" Bella nodded seriously. "We're getting a daddy." "You already have a daddy," Jacob corrected, squeezing Sean's hand. "Now it's forever." The judge smiled, looked at Sean. "Mr. Miller, do you understand the commitment you're making?" "Yes, Your Honor." Sean's voice was thick. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I grant this adoption. Jacob and Bella Miller, welcome to your forever family." The gavel came down, and Sean lost it. Ugly crying in a courtroom, didn't care who saw. Victoria was crying. The twins were confused but happy, and for the first time in his life, Sean understood what wholeness felt like. That night, they celebrated at home. Pizza, ice cream, cartoons on the big TV. Normal, simple, perfect. After the twins were asleep, Victoria found Sean in the living room. He was looking at the adoption papers, running his fingers over the names. Jacob Miller, Bella Miller. "You okay?" Victoria sat beside him. "More than okay." He looked at her. "I have something to ask you." Her heart started racing. Sean got down on one knee, pulled out a ring. "Victoria Brown, you walked into my life when I was a ghost. You brought noise and mess and life into a house that was dead. You showed me that broken doesn't mean finished." His voice cracked. "You gave me a reason to wake up, a reason to try, a reason to believe I could be loved again." Tears poured down Victoria's face. "I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm still learning. But I promise you I will spend every day trying to be the man you and those kids deserve." He held up the ring. "Will you marry me?" Victoria couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She nodded, over and over. "Yes, yes, oh my God, yes." Sean slipped the ring on her finger, stood, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria was laughing through tears. "Those kids are going to lose their minds." "Good," Sean grinned. "Let them." Upstairs, Bella's small voice drifted through the baby monitor. "Jacob, wake up." "Why?" "Daddy's happy. I can feel it." A pause. "Me too." And in the living room below, two broken people held each other and thanked God for second chances they never thought they'd get. The wedding was in the garden. 6 months after the proposal. Spring, everything blooming. Victoria didn't want anything big, just them, the people who mattered. Sean's business partner Richard came, looked around at the transformed mansion, toys on the lawn, children's laughter, life everywhere, and pulled Sean aside. "I don't recognize this place." "Good," Sean smiled. "It's not supposed to be what it was." Victoria wore a simple white dress, flowers in her hair, no veil, no big production. Just her, beautiful, real. Bella was the flower girl, took her job very seriously, threw petals with intense concentration. Jacob was the ring bearer, dropped the rings twice. Everyone laughed. He picked them up, proud, kept going. And Sean stood at the altar watching his family walk toward him, thinking about the man he used to be, the one who lived in silence, who locked himself away, who thought love was something that happened once and then destroyed you. That man was gone. The ceremony was short. The pastor, Victoria's childhood pastor who'd driven 3 hours to be there, spoke about grace, about how God doesn't wait for us to be ready. He just shows up in our brokenness and does what only He can do. Sean and Victoria didn't find each other by accident, he said, voice warm. They found each other because mercy doesn't give up on broken hearts. Because love still reaches into dark places. Because God specializes in making families out of strangers. Sean felt tears on his face, didn't wipe them away. Victoria squeezed his hand. The pastor smiled. Sean, your vows. Sean turned to Victoria, took both her hands. 7 years ago, I thought my life was over. I built walls so high I forgot what sunlight felt like. I convinced myself I was fine living in the dark. His voice shook. And then you walked into my house with 2 babies and reminded me that life doesn't wait for permission. It just shows up, and it demands that we show up too. Victoria's tears fell freely. You didn't fix me. You didn't save me. You just loved me while I learned to save myself. He smiled through his tears. And that's what I promise you. To keep showing up. To keep choosing this. To keep loving you and those kids with everything I have. Every single day. For the rest of my life. Victoria could barely speak. I promise to let you. To trust you. To build this life with you even when it's scary. Because you're worth it. We're worth it. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Sean pulled Victoria close, kissed her like the whole world was watching and he didn't care. The twins cheered, jumped up and down. That's our mama and daddy, Bella announced to everyone. And it was. At the reception, just pizza and cake on the back lawn, Bella tugged on Sean's sleeve. Daddy? He picked her up. Yeah, baby girl? You're not sad anymore, are you? Sean's breath caught. That question, the one that started everything. He looked at Victoria laughing with the pastor, at Jacob chasing butterflies, at the house behind them, windows open, music playing, life pouring out of every corner. No, sweetheart, he kissed Bella's forehead. Daddy's not sad anymore. Good. She hugged his neck tight. 'Cause we love you. I love you too. So much. That night, after everyone left and the twins were asleep, Sean and Victoria stood in the garden where they'd gotten married. The fairy lights were still up, stars above, quiet all around. You think Emma would approve? Victoria asked softly. Sean thought about it. Really, thought about it. Yeah, I do. He pulled Victoria closer. She wanted me to live, and I finally am. Victoria rested her head on his chest. I keep thinking about how close we came to missing this. If my daycare hadn't closed that day, if you hadn't come home early, if Bella hadn't... But she did. Sean kissed the top of her head. And I think that's the whole point. None of this was random. It was all leading here. You really believe that? I have to, because if I don't, then I have to believe it was all just luck. And I don't think luck does this. He gestured at the house. At their life. I think God does this. Victoria smiled. Yeah, I think so too. They stood there in the quiet, not the suffocating silence Sean used to live in, the peaceful kind, the kind that comes after storms. Thank you, Sean whispered. For what? For not giving up on me. For bringing your babies into my house even when you were terrified. For asking me to be part of your life. Thank you for saying yes. Victoria looked up at him. For choosing us when you could have stayed safe. Sean kissed her, soft, full of promise. And somewhere in the house, through the baby monitor, they heard Bella talking in her sleep. Love you, Daddy. Years later, people would ask Sean how he turned his life around. How he went from a ghost in a mansion to a father coaching Little League, to a husband who still made pancakes every Saturday, to a man who smiled easily and lived fully. And he'd always tell them the same thing. I didn't turn it around, God did. Through a desperate mother and 2 babies who taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be loved. He'd think about that day, the confrontation, the anger, the moment Bella looked up at him and saw what no one else could see. Daddy sad? 2 words that shattered 7 years of walls. 2 words that saved his life. And he'd whisper a prayer, the same one he whispered every night. Thank you for not giving up on me, for sending them when I needed them most, for proving that broken doesn't mean finished. Thank you for my family. In the house that used to be a tomb, life bloomed. Laughter echoed through halls that once only knew silence. Fingerprints covered windows that used to be pristine. Toys scattered across floors that used to be empty. And in the center of it all, a man who thought he'd lost everything, a woman who thought she'd never have enough, and 2 children who showed them both that love doesn't need permission. It just needs someone brave enough to say yes. And they did. Every single day. They said yes. Sometimes God doesn't wait for us to be ready. He just sends exactly who we need, exactly when we need them most. And if we're brave enough to let them in, if we're brave enough to believe we're worth saving, He turns our pain into purpose, our brokenness into beauty, our ending into a beginning we never saw coming.